Over the last few days, the mood inside West Ham has turned into a mix of expectation and impatience. Supporters can sense that something big is about to happen, and the board appears ready to take a bold step to change the club's direction. The new manager already understands the urgency. After just one match in charge, he realized the team's attack simply isn't producing enough to compete at Premier League level. His debut ended in a frustrating 1-1 draw away at Everton, and the starting striker's performance left plenty to be desired. The German forward, who arrived with decent credentials, failed to impose himself physically or technically. He looked disconnected, hesitant, and short of confidence. Even so, the manager decided to give him another chance in the next game against Arsenal, perhaps hoping that a big opponent might wake him up. But what followed was the opposite. He was almost invisible at the Emirates, and the manager left North London convinced that he needed another name to lead the line. It didn't take long for the message to reach the club hierarchy. A new forward is an absolute priority in January. The coach hasn't hidden from anyone that he wants a striker as soon as the transfer window opens. And to the surprise of many, the West Ham board responded positively. Despite financial restraints and concerns about balance sheets, the club's owners gave the green light for the manager to find the right man to lead the attack and keep the team away from relegation trouble. The list of potential names began to circulate, and supporters went digging for clues. Rumors came thick and fast. There was talk of young prospects like Joshua Zirkzee, seasoned Premier League veterans such as Chris Wood, and even Real Madrid's teenage wonder Endrick. But among all those names, there was one that felt different, one that made journalists and club insiders whisper. A name that had already been on West Ham's radar before taking a very different path. This particular player had left England not long ago after a transfer that caught the attention of the entire footballing world. The offer he received was impossible to refuse. An astronomical tax-free salary from one of the wealthiest clubs in the Middle East. There he quickly became one of the league's biggest stars, piling up goals and earning international status. Dozens of goals in just over a season, staggering numbers that nevertheless had an unexpected side effect: complete exclusion from England's national team picture. And this is where the story gets even more interesting. With the World Cup approaching, the pressure to return to a truly competitive environment increased. The player, ambitious and aware of his worth, knows that shining in Saudi Arabia is not enough to guarantee a seat on the plane to America. The national team manager, attentive to his options, has made it clear in private conversations that however talented he is, a call-up will only come if he returns to English football. That conversation, revealed by sources close to the national setup, seems to have changed everything. What was once a distant idea has started to become a real possibility, and West Ham, sensing the opportunity, has stepped in. Behind-the-scenes reports suggest that in the last 24 hours, there has been a surprising twist. A respected journalist revealed that the club from East London has not only reignited interest in the striker, but is already working quietly to make a complex deal possible. A loan involving a huge salary and tricky tax arrangements. The most curious thing is that until recently it looked impossible. Those closest to the player insisted that he was perfectly happy in the Middle East, enjoying a life of luxury and stability. And indeed, anyone who had seen him there would hardly imagine such an abrupt exit. However, according to fresh reports, personal motivation, the chance to play at the World Cup, has started to outweigh the comfort of his bank account. The journalist who dropped the bomb claimed that West Ham are not just watching or monitoring, they are already working on the deal. Club officials are studying a financial structure that would allow them to cover a significant portion of the wages while also avoiding the tax complications that would arise if he returned to the UK. It's an ambitious move and, in a way, a very West Ham one, somewhere between pragmatism and dream. But the suspense remains, because so far no one at the club has officially confirmed the name. There's a strategic silence almost rehearsed while details are being refined. Supporters, meanwhile, are already speculating, and online forums are buzzing with guesses. Some believe it's just a smokescreen, a way to put pressure on another target. Others, more hopeful, think the deal is real, and that an announcement could soon shake the Premier League. What is certain is that this player was not long ago one of the most sought-after forwards in England. A striker with a strong personality, a track record of goals, and a direct connection with the Premier League's Golden Boot race. His name was once seriously considered by West Ham before that record-breaking move, but at the time no club could compete with what Saudi football offered, over £600,000 per week tax-free. Now everything seems to have shifted. He has scored 38 goals in 54 matches since arriving in the Middle East. Impressive statistics, yet not enough to satisfy his greater ambitions. With the World Cup on the horizon, his window of opportunity is narrow. Returning to England even temporarily could be the decisive step to re-establish his place among the country's elite forwards. And here comes the intriguing part. West Ham are reportedly willing to pay a substantial portion of that astronomical salary to make the loan happen. The plan is clear. Bring him for a few months, let him regain visibility, and at the same time solve the team's attacking problems. A partnership of convenience that could benefit both sides. And the name at last? The one moving journalists, fans, and executives behind the scenes of London football? Yes, we're talking about him. Ivan Toney, the striker who left Brentford for Al Ahly, and who could now be about to wear the claret and blue of West Ham. Before we carry on, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. This is really important because it strengthens the claret and blue family, making our West Ham bigger and stronger every day. Just the mention of Ivan Toney's name causes a tremor in any conversation about West Ham. He's the kind of player who never goes unnoticed on or off the pitch. And the most curious part is that even far away from England, his name has never really left Premier League discussions. Toney is one of those forwards who leave a mark, for his goals, his confidence, and his personality. And that mix of attitude and ability makes him such a fascinating figure for a club like West Ham, a team that thrives on emotion and resilience. In recent months, Hammers fans have felt a void up front. Since Michail Antonio's time as the team's main striker came to an end, the club has never really found a true number 9 that could frighten defenders. Füllkrug, despite his experience, hasn't settled in. He lacks mobility instinct and that street-smart touch a proper striker needs. The one who presses high, creates chaos, and turns half-chances into goals. Nuno Espirito Santo noticed it immediately. In his first training session, he talked about intensity, movement, and offensive mindset, all qualities that fit Toney's profile perfectly. Toney isn't just a finisher, he dictates the game's rhythm. At Brentford, he did far more than put the ball in the net. He was involved in build-up play-open spaces, delivered first-time passes, and above all gave the team belief. He was the kind of player who made the whole stadium hold its breath whenever he had the ball at his feet. And right now, that's exactly the sort of energy West Ham are missing. Nuno's tactical style also helps explain the interest. The Portuguese manager values strikers who can hold up play, protect the ball with their back to goal, and create space for midfielders to arrive late in the box. At Wolves, he built his attack around Raúl Jiménez, and it worked beautifully. At Tottenham, he tried to replicate it, but didn't have enough time. Now at West Ham, he might have the perfect chance to bring back that system, with a striker capable of occupying defenders and turning tight games into goals. But there's something deeper about this story. West Ham aren't just looking for goals, they're looking for identity. Since Declan Rice left, the club has been trying to reinvent itself. There was a transitional period under David Moyes marked by European success, but also signs of fatigue. When Nuno arrived, the mission was clear: rebuild the club's competitive spirit, but with a modern, bold touch. Signing Toney would symbolize that perfectly, a proven Premier League forward with a strong personality and a hunger to show he can still be a top player in English football. And if the sporting side is appealing, the symbolic side is even more powerful. Imagine what it would mean for supporters to see a player of that caliber wearing the claret and blue at the London Stadium. It would be a message to the rest of the league: West Ham won't settle for being background noise. It would also show ambition from the board. Proof that the club want more than just survival, they want to compete, they want to challenge. Of course there are risks. Toney's salary is one of them. The financial package to bring him even on loan would be heavy. Reports suggest he earns over £600,000 per week tax-free in Saudi Arabia, a figure impossible to match in England. That's why club officials are working on a creative structure. West Ham would pay a significant portion of his wages, while the rest could be offset through commercial deals and performance clauses. It's financially complex, but not impossible, especially if Toney truly wants to return and is willing to sacrifice part of his income to regain his England spot. And that's precisely where West Ham's hope lies. Toney wants to play in the World Cup. To do so, he needs to be at the center of Premier League action. England manager Thomas Tuchel is said to have made it clear that Toney is still being watched, but must prove himself again at the highest level. Returning to West Ham in this context would be the fastest route. He'd arrive hungry, determined, eager to show he's not just a Middle Eastern superstar, but still an elite Premier League striker. Toney's relationship with English football has been a roller coaster. At Brentford, he became a hero, but also faced controversy off the pitch, which temporarily kept him away from the national team. When he seemed ready to make the leap to a bigger club, that irresistible offer from Al Ahly arrived, and it felt as if he had traded sporting dreams for financial comfort. Now it seems he wants to balance the scales, to prove he still has the hunger and the ability to dominate English defenses. Inside West Ham's dressing room, the news hit like a spark. Players and coaching staff know that the arrival of such a name would completely change the atmosphere. It's not just about a reinforcement, it's a statement of intent, a sign that the club is willing to take risks even in uncertain times. For a squad struggling to regain confidence, having a personality as strong and self-assured as Toney's would be a massive boost. And then there's the fans. West Ham supporters have long memories. They remember the days of Paulo Di Canio, of Carlos Tevez, when the team played with spirit and defiance. The arrival of Toney would revive that essence, that rebellious spark, that fearless approach. It would be the kind of signing that reignites pride and makes supporters believe again that the club can stand tall against anyone. The moment, therefore, is decisive. The board knows there's no margin for error. West Ham need goals, energy, and a unifying figure. Toney could be all of that if he arrives with the right focus. According to journalist Alan Nixon, the club are already working on the deal, exploring how to make it viable. The interest is real, the desire is mutual, and now everything depends on the numbers, and of course on Toney's willingness to swap the luxury of the Middle East for a new challenge in London. Time is ticking. January is approaching, and each day seems to fuel the anticipation. What sounded like a distant rumor a week ago now feels tangible, and for West Ham fans, just imagining Toney wearing the claret shirt again is enough to reignite hope. Before we carry on, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. This is really important because it strengthens the claret and blue family, making our West Ham bigger and stronger every day. West Ham have always been a club built on moments, emotional, unpredictable, and full of heart. And when a name like Ivan Toney appears on the horizon, it's impossible not to feel that tingle of excitement that something truly big might be about to happen. Because deep down, supporters know this is a club that might not be the richest, might not always fight for trophies, but has the unique power to reinvent itself. That's what this story is really about. The possible arrival of Toney wouldn't just be a transfer, it would be a statement. It would be West Ham telling the football world that they refuse to play the role of bystander, that they still believe in bold projects even in difficult times. It would be the club returning to its natural state of courage, the same spirit that has defined it from the Upton Park days to the modern era at the London Stadium. When the news first broke, many reacted with disbelief. After all, we're talking about one of the highest paid players in world football, living in comfort and financial security. Why would he give that up to fight in a Premier League battle with a mid-table team? The answer lies in something money can't buy, the chance to play in a World Cup, to write his name once more into England's football story. And this is where Toney and West Ham meet, two paths that need each other. The player is seeking redemption, and the club is searching for a new symbol. At 29, Toney stands at a crossroads. He's been the promise, the villain, the star. But now he wants to be the protagonist again. West Ham, meanwhile, are trying to rediscover their purpose. Since Declan Rice's departure, the club have lost a bit of that competitive soul which once drove them to win the Europa Conference League. Since then, they've lived between highs and lows, trying to balance tradition and modernity, grit and sophistication. The arrival of Nuno Espirito Santo brought a new dynamic. The Portuguese manager wants structure, tactical clarity, and discipline, but without losing the intensity that defines West Ham's identity. For that to work, he needs a striker who scores, leads, and commands respect. Toney fits perfectly into that idea. But beyond tactics and ambition, there's a deep emotional thread running through this story. West Ham fans live on connection. They need to feel that the team represents them, that every player fights for them. Toney brings that kind of energy. At West Ham, a club that has always valued fight and authenticity, that spirit would fit perfectly. Of course, none of this comes easy. The deal, if it happens, will be complex. West Ham are studying every detail to make the loan financially possible without breaching UK tax regulations. That's why journalist Alan Nixon described the process as an operation in motion. If they pull it off, the impact would be immense. On the pitch, West Ham would gain firepower immediately. Off it, they'd gain relevance. Moves like that transform the mood, the mentality, the self-belief. Suddenly, West Ham wouldn't be seen as a struggling side, but as a bold player in the January market. And there's another symbolic layer to all of this. Older fans will remember, whenever West Ham brought in a big name, something special happened. It was like a spark that reignited belief. Interestingly, there's a kind of parallel between Toney and West Ham themselves. Both have reputations as fighters, both have faced criticism and comebacks, and both seem to carry the same feeling, that their story isn't finished yet. As negotiations unfold quietly behind the scenes, fans live that familiar mix of anxiety and hope. Deep down, Hammers fans know their club is always just one big signing away from reigniting its competitive fire. If Toney really does arrive, it won't just be a signing. It'll be a statement. It'll be West Ham saying, "We still believe." For West Ham, this possible union would be more than strategic. It would be poetic. The meeting of a player seeking redemption with a club rediscovering its soul. And now, everything depends on the next few weeks. If negotiations move forward, if the numbers align, if Toney says yes, the London Stadium will erupt. Because everyone who truly knows West Ham understands one thing. When this club decides to dream, nothing is impossible. And that's all for today's West Ham news. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with fellow fans, and of course subscribe to the channel so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Come on, you Irons.